Or we're going to have a look at the international press now. Haxi Meyers-Belkin is with us. Been a very, very bloody week for worldwide terrorism. This huge blast at the weekend in the Iraqi capital in Baghdad, of course, killing over 120 people now.
Yesterday was the most bloody day in the capital this year, and the photo used by this article in the Wall Street Journal gives you a sense of the utter destruction of the blast that targeted a busy shopping district. The author sees the attack in the context of the Islamic State group's defeat in the city of Fallujah to the Iraqi forces last month. It says that a series of losses in Syria and Iraq have prompted the militants to revert to more guerrilla-style tactics, including suicide attacks, and specifically in urban areas. The article also underlines the deteriorating security situation in Iraq and, of course, Iraqis mounting frustration with their government. When Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi visited the site just hours after the blast, he was jeered by angry crowds who even threw rocks at his motorcade.
Yeah, as far as that death count is concerned, I mean, it really is breaking new grisly territory, isn't it?
Absolutely, and as we can see in this article in the Washington Post, 45 people were killed last week at Ataturk Airport in Turkey. 20 people died in the Bangladeshi capital on Friday, and at least 121 people, including many children, were murdered in Baghdad as people gathered during the holy month of Ramadan. But this article argues that we in the West have become almost numb to atrocities in Baghdad. There'll be no "We Are Baghdad" hashtags, no Facebook profile pictures bearing the Iraqi flag.
Yeah, it's very true to say. And of course, amongst all that as well, we've also had this terrible attack in Dhaka, Bangladesh, which is making headlines across the world.
If we take a look at an article in the Wall Street Journal, there's a picture that's come to define the outpouring of grief in the aftermath of the attack. A group of people gathering for a Sunday vigil to honour the 20 people, as I mentioned earlier, killed when Bangladeshi militants with links to the Islamic State organisation stormed a cafe in an upmarket neighbourhood. Now, of those 20 people killed during the siege, 9 were Italian nationals, quite possibly the reason you'll be hearing a lot more about this story in the Western media than, say, the Baghdad attack. An article in Italian daily La Corriere della Sera focuses on the identities of the perpetrators. The piece explains that far from the traditional image we have of young men being radicalised, who come from very poor backgrounds, very little education, the young men who carried out this attack were in fact highly educated, wealthy Bangladeshis who lived in a very wealthy Dhaka neighbourhood. One was even the son of a local politician. So this paper really sounding the alarm at what it calls the sons of the elite turning to terrorism.
And we've also had, of course, all these attacks happening in the Muslim holy month of Ramadan.
A very unsettling article in the New York Times reminds us that as Ramadan approached, jihadist propagandists told their followers that it was a good time to kill people, putting it very bluntly there. The author explains that it's widely believed that rewards earned for noble acts are greater during the month of Ramadan, which ends with the holiday of Eid this week. Now, according to this article, jihadists across the world have perverted this belief to serve their own ends, which explains, again, according to this article, why we've seen so many devastating atrocities in recent weeks. The journalist even traces this back to the Orlando massacre at a gay nightclub some 3 weeks ago.
Now, as we're about to see as well, the world's revulsion, if you like, at the acts of Islamic State group-affiliated terrorists can lead to some, should we say, rather embarrassing misunderstandings. This next story from Haxi is perhaps unsurprisingly coming from the US, isn't it?
I'd like to be surprised, but this stuff does seem to come from the US quite a bit, but it's a large country.
Yeah.
Emirati paper Gulf News is reporting that the US police has offered a formal apology for mistreating a businessman from the United Arab Emirates after mistaking him for an Islamic State group sympathiser. The man was detained by armed police on the street for no other reason, as the police later admitted, than the fact that he was wearing traditional dress. The man in question accepted the apology, but the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs has summoned the deputy US ambassador to demand further clarifications. So watch this space as far as this story is concerned.
We shall see if it goes any further. Now we're going to turn to the UK. Country, of course, still reeling from the vote to leave the EU. Something of a constitutional crisis. You've enjoyed this one, haven't you?
Oh, I have. This is, without doubt, my favourite front page from today. It's from Scottish paper The National. We can see Justice Secretary Michael Gove mocked up as an alien under the title The X-Files, with the caption, Tory leader hopeful Michael Gove thinks there's no appetite for a second independence referendum in Scotland. What planet is he on? Scotland, of course, unlike the rest of the EU, voted overwhelmingly to stay in the EU. But Scotland's not the only voice calling for another referendum. Writing to In The Guardian, former Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg says that while the government agrees the UK should leave the EU, the government has absolutely no idea about the how, the when and to what ends of the whole question. Those questions all remain unanswered, according to the former Deputy Prime Minister. The government of the day enjoys a mandate to quit, he argues, quit the EU, that is, but no mandate as to how this should be done. He believes that whoever succeeds David Cameron should immediately put their plan to a vote in the House of Commons and also seek a mandate for that very plan with a general election.
Not everybody's too keen on that idea, though, are they?
By no means. We will have riots, reads a headline from today's pro-Brexit Daily Express. The paper is outraged at any attempt by Clegg or indeed anyone else to force MPs to pass an Act of Parliament before launching the UK's departure from the EU. For this paper, that's nothing short of an attempt to ignore the democratic will of the British people.
Okay, we shall see how it plays out. Haxie, thank you very much. Haxie Mayers-Belkin with the papers today, and Stephen, of course, with business. More from them as the programme continues. Now, coming up for you in a special report for Focus today, we're going to be reporting from a town in the east of France where a whole group of friends aged between 20 and 30 converted to Islam, and they were then seduced by IS propaganda on the internet. So they traded their peaceful life in France for the mayhem in Syria. It's our special report in Focus in the next half hour.